Morning all, this is an early morning quick trip to, as you can see on the sign, the Hills and Holes Reserve at Barnack, which is a special site for all people with an interest in orchids, and it's a fascinating site in its own way for many other reasons. So I'm going to show you a little bit more once we get inside, but searching for the early purple orchid today. It should be in flower here. It's the first flowering orchid of the season, so we'll go and take a look, see what we can find. It's a pretty amazing landscape here at Barnack, as you can see around me. It's there's no other location like this that I've seen anywhere in the country. I'm sure they exist. You can see behind what looks like a lunar landscape covered in grass, which is typical of the Hills and Holes, and it's where it gets its name from. Now, I'm conscious this is meant to be a hunt for orchid videos, and Barnack has an incredible background and history that could take up this entire video, and I don't want to do that, but I can't come here and not mention exactly what this place was for those that don't know. It was an old quarry. Now, we think of quarries nowadays as big holes in the ground with gigantic machines extracting rocks, but this was a quarry that dates back to medieval times. This goes back to around about the year 500 AD, and it actually finished in the late 1400s, so we're talking a seriously old quarry that was worked by human hands, so no machines whatsoever, pre-industrial revolution times, and that makes it a mind-blowing place for me, the idea that people dug out gigantic boulders here with their hands, with shovels, with picks, with crowbars, and moved that stone to locations where it was used in building. Now, it was used locally in villages, in Barnack, in Stamford, but more famously it was used in Peterborough Cathedral. It's the main stone that's used in Peterborough Cathedral, and it even travelled over 40 miles away from here to Ely Cathedral, which is mostly built out of Barnack limestone too. And how on earth in those days they moved these boulders from here to there, again, it's mind-blowing stuff. I mean, it moved by road, horse-drawn carts, it moved by river, it went down the Nene, it went down the Welland. Waterways were different back then in terms of links between the rivers, and you could do it, but absolutely incredible journey, and all done by hand with horses. Pretty amazing stuff. And the landscape around here is literally the holes where the limestone was dug out, and the hills around them were largely spoil heaps around those holes. And what has happened since the quarry closed down is that, you know, Mother Nature has coated the stone that was remaining with soil, and it's a very lime-rich soil, as you would expect it to be. In fact, if I just turn the camera down, you can see the sort of soil that the plants love here. As you can see, it's very, very stony, gritty, full of limestone, and these limestone soil habitats are extremely rare in the country. Now, this reserve has significance and importance nationally as well as locally. It's protected by Nature England. It's an absolute treasure. 8 different varieties of orchid grow here. 300 different plants grow here. There's many rare plants, and there's many rare insects that are associated with those plants, including a lot of rare butterflies. It's an absolutely amazing place. Now, there are parts of the reserve that I've got to be careful what I say here. I'm not keen on. There are roped off areas. I don't like the concept of roped off areas in nature reserves, because it's not natural. You don't get roped off areas out in the wild, but I understand the reasons for them. It is to protect the species from dying out. They have to make sure there's some areas where human beings can't trample or pick plants or whatever they might do to damage them. But I don't like it. It doesn't look good. The good thing here is that the plants that they're protecting grow outside of the roped off areas. Many people don't know that. They stand there for ages looking inside these roped off reserves, struggling to see anything, when 6 foot behind them, growing around their feet, is the very plant they're looking for. So I know that, and if you know where to look here, you can find the plant. So that's what I'm hoping to do today. Target species is the early purple orchid today. It's ugly. It's the only orchid really I think is quite ugly. It's nothing much to it, but as the name suggests, it's early, and it's the first flowering native British orchid, and it brings in the new orchid season. So ugly or not, we love to see it growing. It's the start of a chain of events where all the other orchids will follow suit. So it brings in the new season. So it should be at its peak now. So I pretty much know where to look. So we'll be going and trying and finding them. If we find something else as well on top, that'll be a bonus. But I'm not expecting it. It's the early purple orchid that we're looking for. So I'm going to stop rambling now and get moving. Just pausing for a second, because it's not often you see one of these magnificent red kites sitting in a tree as opposed to soaring around in the clouds. But at the very top of that tree is a mighty big kite, and as I walk towards it, it's going to take off. So we'll stay with him. There he goes. Superb creatures. Okay, we're coming up to the part of the reserve now that has most interest for me. I'm often asked by people where to actually come to within this site to find the orchids, and it's very difficult to describe. It is like a lunar landscape, and it's very disorientating. So to try and explain exactly which hill and which hole to visit is very, very difficult. It kind of keeps it quite secretive really, because it is just darned impossible to communicate where things are. You'll see in front of us on the right here a roped off area which looks just like the rest of the reserve, but it's been roped off for a reason, and they put up these signs that tell you what to look for. We'll have a look at this one. Pyramidal orchid, which is not in flower yet. It says May to June, but it won't be out for at least another 3 weeks, I would say. And people tend to stand here and they just stare for hours thinking, where are these damn things? Now some of them you can see, but a lot of them you can't, because it doesn't say where exactly in this area. There's no sign that says here they are. And many of these orchids are quite diminutive things anyway. But often, not in this case, they can just turn round and they're growing right behind them. But nobody does, because they just assume from the signage that it's in front of them. So there you go, there's a tip. Look behind you. I know where we're heading, and it's been a while since I've been up here. It's these little hollows that are in front of us. You've got a roped off area there on your right. It's these hollows just behind the roped off area that usually deliver the goods. So we're going to take a look. And you need to be careful with some of these, especially if the grass is wet, because they're quite steep, and if you don't have the proper footwear on, you'll be struggling. And I've just bumped into some orchids already down here amongst the cowslips. you go, that's an early purple orchid, and it's I don't know if ugly is a fair word, but it doesn't have a whole lot about it. The shape of the flower is a kind of, looks like some kiddies just screwed it up. I shouldn't be unfair here, but yeah, they don't do much for me, but they're the first ones out. There you go, early purple orchids, and there's a few clumps lying around. You don't get too many, but these hollows are where to look. Most of them are just starting to go over now. They're not at their peak, but they're not far off. And it's in these dips really that most of the orchids that grow here during the course of the season will appear. So we'll be coming back here later in the season to see a few other varieties, hopefully, touch wood, growing here. A slightly bigger one there, but you can see these are going over now. They're starting to really sort of brown off and shrivel, even if some of them look that way when they first come out. Not the prettiest of plants, but it is an orchid. Now I'm going to have a quick wander around here. I'll turn the camera off while I'm doing it in a mo. There are very few variations of this particular orchid, but there is a white one, and I've seen it once and once only, and it was here, and I've never seen it since. It was about 5 years ago. I'm going to have a quick wander around, see if I can find it. I very much doubt it. It is exceptionally rare, but I'm going to have a look, but I won't bore you with that. If I find it, I'll be back. We described these early purple orchids as ugly plants. I thought this one deserves a bit of credit. It's significantly bigger than the rest, and it's in pristine condition, so I'll give it a bit of footage. That's a very nice plant. Well, no joy on the finding the white version. I didn't think I would find it. It appeared once, I think, in the last 6 or 7 years. It'll come back one year. They have a tendency to lie dormant for years on end and pop back up, and I don't think it's here. Could be here, but I'm not going to find it. Just wanted to stop for a second to show you a plant that really is it's what Barnack is famous for, which is the pasque flower, P-A-S-Q-U-E. Grows wild here, doesn't grow wild in many places in the whole country. I think I read somewhere that there's more of them growing here wild than on any other site anywhere in the UK. I'm just going to show you one. There's one sitting down next to me down here. Well, that's it. That's about as exciting as it gets at this stage at Barnack. As I say, they're not the prettiest of orchids, the early purples, but they are the first, and they are here. If you want to see them, get out now, because I think 2 weeks' time they'll all be gone. They've been in flower for a couple of weeks already. Great site though. There's about another 7 species of orchid that grow here as the season goes on, so we'll be coming back a few times to see what's what. But as I say, fantastic reserve. Big credit to those that look after it, and yeah, come out here on a Sunday afternoon when the weather's a bit warmer. You'll always find something here. It's a fascinating place. But that's it for Barnack. See you around.